These Are the Ways from Red Hot Chili Peppers, coming in at 26 on the Rock 30, counting them down with my guest co-host Johnny Hawkins of Nothing More. And the thing that I always love about your band is the live show. I mean, other bands have LED screens and pyro and lights and all this cool stuff, but you guys kind of bring a physical element to it all. So with that said, I was curious if bands like Kiss and Alice Cooper, who use a lot of physical props as well in their live show, were huge influences on you guys when you first started out.
They were not huge influences, to be honest, growing up, at least. Definitely respect what they do and what they've done in rock and roll history, but I don't know, it was kind of organic in the sense that we had very little to work with at the beginning. We didn't have a label, we didn't have funding, and we just tried to stand out in ways that were different than the other bands, and we didn't have a budget to do that, so we just started playing with our instruments differently and trying to move drums around and just, work with what we had. So our bass player, Daniel, started welding, and as kind of a pet passion project on the side, and he started welding my drums. When I started singing, brought some of the drums up front, and I wanted to stand on them without them breaking and wobbling, and so he built this kind of metal enclosure, and that really started this whole path that we started going down, where Dan, our bass player, was very influential in saying that, hey, I've seen LED screens, I've seen pyro, I've seen this and that, what can we do differently? And he's, has a background in riding motorcycles and stuff like that. And the landlord that we had at the house that we worked on the self-titled album, we all moved into a house together. That was kind of a side note. But the landlord there was a friend of ours, and he had like 8 cars all in the backyard because he just picked them apart and rebuilt things. So we had all these parts laying around. We had bicycle chains and engine parts and gears. And so all that stuff was, handy and right there. And Dan started putting those things into stuff he was building on stage. And so as time goes on, obviously we incorporate different levels of technology and a budget, but we have kind of aimed at keeping that kind of DIY side to kind of incorporate and, again, keep us standing out and looking a little different than other bands on stage.
You guys always keep it evolving. That's what I love about the drum robot, and we'll be talking about that coming up shortly. Now we bring on Crowbot. Not the drum robot, Crowbot at number 25 would Set You Free.
It's dark and I'm lost, but I'll keep waiting here beside you. If this pain is the cost, there's no light that's here to follow.
what's up? This is Adam. This is Mike. And you're listening to the L.A. Lloyd Rock Countdown.
It's time to take a stand and save our lives. I'm sick of burying all my feelings in isolation. I'm done with absorbing all the beatings. Where's the salvation? We've been drowning for far too long. It's time to take a stand and save our lives right before we
I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome back to day 150 of the news.
And I would like to welcome everyone back to day 150 of the war in Ukraine. This is the final day in month 5, and tomorrow on day 151, on Sunday, will be the very first day of the 6th month of the war. It is incredible to think that Ukraine has made it this far, and it's incredible to think that we have been watching it every single day since it's been happening, the entirety of the Lee Spring Army. And it's honestly impressive to me to think that that has been the case. Day in, day out, we have watched the war develop every single moment of it. And we will be here to cover it until the very end. And of course, not only that, but we have gotten some more big news. I didn't put any markers down in this area today, but we did get some more big news of developments that we now can confirm. But before we get to any of that, I would like to make a couple of quick little mentions. First, our merchandise store is having a limited edition run on Lee Spring Army and Coffee Fun merch. If you want to find these merchandise store, I said this like I was speaking Ukrainian. But anyways, you can go to the stream, which is right here. Look at that. You can click on the stream that we now will click mute for the stream. We scroll down here, and you have the description for the night. It actually tells you exactly what we're going to be covering, and it also has a couple of links. The first one is the merchandise store. The second one will take you to United 24, where you can support Ukraine. directly to the Ukrainian government. The third one is a link to our Discord servers, which can take you there through an invite, which will bring you into the Lee Spring Army community. And then the fourth one is the link to the map, which if you click on, will actually take you right to the exact same map I'm using on stream, just in case you all didn't know. But the one we're talking about is this one. If you click on it, you can get on here and you can take a look at our limited edition merch, which are the Lee Spring Army t-shirt and hoodie, and also the Coffee Fund t-shirt, hoodie, and sticker. These are only going to be available for about the next hour and 50 minutes at this point. And so if you haven't already gotten yours and you are wanting some, make sure to get it right now, because time is in fact running out. It helps to support this channel, and you'll get something pretty cool out of it. And so with that, now that we've covered this little bit of information, I also have to give a little bit of an aside, and I thought I would say something about this in advance just in case if anyone's noticing. Y'all may notice that I'm not going to be hitting as high vocally in my range as I usually do tonight. That is because after my back problem kind of subsided in the middle of the day today, now something is happening with one of the muscles in my neck, and if I fluctuate my voice too high, it feels like it snaps something in there and it hurts pretty bad. So if you're thinking I sound a little bit down tonight, I'm definitely not. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't snap something in my neck and hurt myself in the middle of the stream. So with all of that out of the way, make sure to go check out that merch, by the way, once more. We're now going to get into the schedule of tonight's news, and we're going to be starting off with maybe one of the most important things that we've heard, and it also shows the intent the Russians have on being honest, and that will be the news in Odessa. After we cover the news in Odessa, we'll then be moving into the Kherson area and covering the two pieces of news we've gotten here as well, along with all of the, I guess you could say, suppositions that we've gotten, although we haven't been able to back them up with picture or video evidence. But now the story seems to be pretty clear and everyone's agreeing on a certain set of a story. So after we cover these bits of news, we'll then be moving up into the Sumy area and covering the news there as well. After we cover that news, we're then going to move down to our location unknowns, but before we get to the location unknowns, we'll be taking a quick pause to answer 3 questions from the chat. After we answer those 3 questions, we'll then move into the location unknowns and the Kharkiv, Belgorod, and also Izium and Balaklia area. After we cover all of that news, we'll then be moving on into the Luhansk and Donetsk area, as well as the remainder of the southern front, which has one bit of news right here. But of course, before we get to all of that news, we'll be taking another pause to answer another 3 questions from the chat, and after we answer those 3 questions, we'll then be covering the remainder of the news for the night, which of course is in Luhansk, Donetsk, and one piece in the southern front. After we do all of that, we'll then be moving into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zelensky. So, with all that in mind, we do have a pretty interesting night of news. We don't actually have any real international news to speak from. The Belgorod news kind of extends as war news from Ukraine. And so without further ado, let's go to probably some of the most important news that we've gotten today outside of Kherson, which has shown that the Russians have no intent on carrying through with anything they agree upon. Y'all may remember that the major news last night was that the Russians, the Ukrainians, and the Turks had made a joint agreement that Ukrainian grain would continue to flow out of the country, and in that agreement it was stated that ships would be allowed to enter Ukrainian ports like Mykolaiv and Odessa, load the grain, and then ship it out overseas to all of the countries that of course usually got imported Ukrainian grains. Not long after that agreement was made in Istanbul, Turkey, Russian cruise missiles slammed directly into the port infrastructure in Odessa, severely crippling it. We actually have multiple videos and clips showing that right here, and so let's watch the first one. Here we can actually see Ukrainian air defense systems in the city of Odessa area shooting down 2 of the Russian missiles before they were able to hit. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the case for all missiles, as we can see right there. Some of them did, of course, manage to land and hit their targets within the port. There we can see the second missile destroyed. With that is the end of this video. We're now going to move on to the next one, which actually shows a little bit more detail of the port explosion. Let's see if it'll load. There we go. This one will actually show the explosions within the port itself. And so here's the video. an important thing to notice, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is that the Russians made an agreement just hours before this attack that international ships would be allowed into Ukrainian ports to pick up the grain and then ship them overseas. And this attack did not attack the city of Odessa, it attacked the port of Odessa, the actual location where these ships would be loaded with grains. For this reason, this has to be a deliberate attack. There is no reason that coincidentally, after an agreement like that was reached, the missiles would then accidentally just glide their way into the port instead of the city and hit there. This is showing that this is something deliberate by the Russians, showing that they won't even respect the agreements they make with the Ukrainians or the Turks or anyone in the world for that matter, and it's all just for show to try and garner themselves some sympathy on the major news headlines. It's really sickening to see, honestly. It's hypocritical of the Russians to do, and it shows us incredibly well what kind of intent the Russians really have, which is not to the advantage or the interests of anyone. Now, I was just taking a pause there because I was trying to think, what reasons would the Russians have to do this rather than stopping this from going through? One reason could be is that they're going to try and say, or throw the blame on the Ukrainians and maybe try and create this famine, this global famine, and ensure that grains cannot be shipped out and destroy the port infrastructure beforehand, so that way they can try and throw the blame on the Ukrainians for not having ports that are capable enough to be able to ship out this grain. This may be kind of like a way for the Russians to construct an image where the Ukrainians would be at fault for a famine instead of them, although what we're seeing right now makes it clearly their fault. Finally, the last bit of news we've gotten from the area of Odessa shows the exact same thing from a different angle. It actually shows the missiles slamming into the port from a distance here in this picture. Now, you can hardly see it. This was taken from the balcony of an apartment building, but you can see the explosion over there right onto the port. Based off of where this picture was taken, if we go to Google Maps and pull up Odessa real quick, which we'll pull up right here, we will throw in the satellite image. So you can see that this picture looks like it was taken from somewhere over here where my mouse cursor is, and it's looking across this inlet, I guess you could call it. We'll call it an inlet for these purposes. You can see that it's looking across, and the only thing across from that area is the actual port itself, which we can see right here. And there's no way you can make this stuff up. And here's the exact, let me make sure, I want to make sure that we're getting this right. From the other video earlier, here's the exact grain towers they looked at. Here's where the ships can dock, the cranes as well. And we can see that there's a lot of aggregate materials that make its way out of this port. For example, here, it appears that it's coal, gravel, probably stuff like that, maybe bauxite as well. Further down, this may be grains. We can also see containers as well. So it seems like a lot of aggregate materials, of course, is traveling through this port, and we can see the Russians deliberately trying to attack Ukraine's ability to transport this stuff out of the country and ensure that this agreement falls apart before it can even take off. Also, right here we can see the Ukrainian frigate, the only one they had entering into this war at port. We know that afterwards it was deliberately scuttled by the Ukrainians within the first few weeks of the war because they were scared that it would fall into Russian hands. Some of that, of course, unfortunate news to see, and I hope that the Russians do pay for their deception and their lies that they're constantly trying to write and depict, although they're clearly see-through. This is almost something you expect a cartoon villain to do. With that, we're now going to be moving out of the city of Odessa, and we're now going to be moving further to the east in the Kherson area. We've seen a couple of interesting sites today, and I believe... Okay, I was making sure that we had those markers correct. We actually have a very interesting site that is kind of showing that the Ukrainians do have overarching plans in this area that they're most likely going to be conducting very soon. What I'm talking about is a counterattack. We've already seen that they destroyed, well, almost destroyed one of the spans of the Antonovsky Bridge, which is the only bridge in the Kherson area that crosses over the Dnipro River. We haven't only seen that. It appears that the Ukrainians also conducted an attack on a bridge near the town of Derivka over the Inhalets River, and we can actually see how precise Ukrainian artillery can actually get. And let me show you all this video, as well as the Google Maps images that this person compiled. We don't know who exactly made this video, but I do have to say they did an incredible job depicting how accurate Ukrainian artillery really is. Well, you see here the layout of the bridge on Google Maps with the red circles. These red circles depict the exact spots where these artillery shells punctured the tarmac on top of the bridge. And as you'll see here in this video, of course, backing this up with video proof, you can see that these shells were placed in the center of every single span of the bridge for about 6 spans. Perfectly spaced. Now, who has a question about how accurate Ukrainian artillery really is? We didn't even see any ranging shots or shots that were off. Every single one of them was like a hole put into a cloth by a sewing machine. It was perfect. The distancing was identical. It was right dead center in each span. This is something that you would see in, say, a movie where you're going up against an incredibly high-tech force, and the Ukrainians are actually putting this into reality. It's not just something that you're being told or having a little bit of an exaggeration to. The Ukrainian artillery is so accurate they can shoot a tick off of a dog. They literally put these equally distanced on the bridge and pretty much compromised 6 entire spans on it. An impressive feat by the Ukrainian artillery, and it does show that it is no lie, no exaggeration, or no myth that Ukrainian artillery can be dead on accurate. This is a perfect example of that, and it also shows that they are destroying every single bridge crossing that the Russians currently occupy. So if we look through the rest of their territory, there only looks like there's about 2 bridges left, one near Novokeri and also one near Milove. Now, I don't feel afraid giving out that kind of information because there's not really much the Russians can do rather than pray that the Ukrainian artillery doesn't hit the bridge, but we've seen that the Ukrainian artillery will hit anything. It can hit exactly onto what it wants. I bet you that they can actually kind of have a little bit of leeway into what they're hitting on a tank, whether it be the turret, the engine bay, or the front glacis, considering how accurate that was. But with that, that's the end of that little clip, and it is showing us that Ukrainian artillery is in action in this area, and it's having very strategic plans involved, and it seems like this has been heavily planned out. And so I'm assuming that what we're about to see in the coming days or weeks is about to be even more thoroughly planned out. Moving on up towards the area of Davidov Brid, we've also seen some more instances of action occurring here, where we've seen the M777s are firing shells that have had a donation attached. Each of these shells you can donate to have something that you want written onto it. And so we're going to look at this video, and we're going to see what's been written onto these shells. We can see the M777 firing, and right here we can see Brusan in Unt Domus. I don't know what that means specifically, but someone did donate to have that message written onto the shell. You now see them, of course, loading the piece, getting the next one ready. Wait. Oh, come on, let me pause it. Negative Ghost Rider. Someone paid to have Negative Ghost Rider put on the shell. Someone else put the pattern something. The pattern is full. Interesting. So now they're loading this shell in with a couple of messages on there, and we actually have a link to the website itself. It's signmyrocket.com. Now, I wonder how much this actually costs. So we're going to pull this up, signmyrocket.com. Send your message to the Russian invaders. Oh, we can choose a weapon as well. Look at this. Let's see. You have the chance to kill orcs with your text written on an artillery shell that will be fired at Russian soldiers. You will receive a photo of your signed shell or a video of it being fired. You can even sign a T-72 tank. Matthew, I think I'm having an idea here.
That is pretty cool, I have to admit.
This is pretty cool. And I think that all of y'all might be getting an idea of what we might do. So, let's just pick this. $3,000.
Whoa.
Yikes. $150 for a 155 millimeter shell, though. Payment method. Okay. So they got PayPal, Bitcoin, Ethereum, credit card. We can write something. What if we wrote Leaf Spring Army? What if we wrote Leaf Spring Army onto a shell that was fired at the Russians? We might make that as an actual video on its own, a standalone video, because that would be incredibly cool. So now that we know that this actually exists, and we actually see the messages being written on this stuff, it would be really cool, actually, if we could get Lee Spring Army put onto the barrel of a T-72. Now, that would be pretty crazy that there would be a tank rolling around out there on the front lines that represents the entirety of the Lee Spring Army. We will think about this. It'll most likely be put onto a 155 millimeter shell, but still incredibly impressive nonetheless. And this is something that I actually didn't look into until this very moment, so I'm pretty excited about this. But since we are, of course, covering the news, we can't sit here and oogle about this for too long. But if y'all have any ideas and would like to support the Ukrainians and also get a little message written on something, y'all can also go to this website as well and put in a little message. Let's see what else we got. 152 is only $100. 203 is $250. The tank is 3,000. Video is 1,000. And then drone grenade. Oh man, a drone grenade. We can actually watch a Russian tank get destroyed with Lee Spring Army written onto it. Anyways, we're going to move on, and I see a lot of people saying do it. So we will definitely do it. But with that, we're now going to move on to the next bit of news after seeing that video, which has given us a lot of ideas. And I bet it's given you all a lot of ideas as well. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Kherson area. But before we do, we actually have to talk about what's been going on near Viskapilia. We got some information the other day that apparently Viskapilia had not been encircled. Now we're getting information today that is in the process of being encircled, and it seems like the story has now started to align over multiple news agencies. And of course, take that with a grain of salt, because news agencies don't really get a lot right, much like we saw. They said it was encircled, and then they came out and said that was wrong. That was 100% wrong. So take it with a grain of salt whenever they say anything. But we do know that the Ukrainians have taken the villages of Potomkin and also Olkin. Hopefully I'm pronouncing those correctly. And so Viskapilia is kind of caught in the middle. And you see that both of these villages are further south of Viskapilia, and so it is possible that the Russians may be encircled here, considering that there really is no road rather than this small country road as a route of retreat. So with this in mind, I think we're probably going to see about an entire BTG, 800 soldiers, get encircled in this area within some time. We've already seen them get pushed out of Olhin and Potemkin, so hopefully we'll see something like that soon. Of course, great news, and it is showing that the Ukrainians are easily able to push the Russians back whenever they put their mind to it. Sorry for the stutter there. But with that, we're now going to be moving out of the Kherson area with some pretty interesting news at that. And with that, we're now going to be moving on up towards the Sumy area, where we also have some additional news as well. Now, the Ukrainians largely don't fire onto Russian military assets within Russia. Assets is kind of a cheesy word, to be honest. We'll call them soldiers. They don't really fire onto Russian soldiers or Russian personnel of any kind in Russia, unless if it's some kind of an ammunition depot, and usually that's been pretty rare recently. So, with that, what I'm about to show y'all is actually pretty rare. In fact, it's incredibly rare. We hardly ever see anything like this. But we did see in the town of Tetkino today that the Ukrainians fired at a border guard installation, and of course, like the Ukrainian artillery usually does, every single shell landed within the confines of the border guard's compound. And so with that, here's the video, with some nice music over it. We can see, the audio is still on. We can see the artillery landing in the compound. One landed just in front of what appears to be a barrack. We've also seen some land within a little fenced area on the side. I'm not sure if that's like an electrical substation or something. But notice how all of the artillery shells are landing within the compound. None of them are landing in the surrounding houses or the roads. They're all landing within the compound itself. They're hitting a lot of stuff around there, I gotta say. Now, they haven't hit the barracks building directly, but they keep on hitting a whole bunch of stuff in the middle of the square. We don't see them hitting any vehicles. Well, that may be a vehicle. We've seen them hit what appears to be an electrical substation on the side, and pretty much all around the buildings, but not directly onto them. An interesting choice that they've made. I don't know why they did that, but still, it's great to see that they are hitting border guard compounds across the border, and they are showing the Russians that they will not be safe, even if they are not fighting in that area of the front. With that, we are now going to be moving on to our next bit of news. Not a lot to cover there, but we're now going to be moving down into the location unknown news. But of course, before we do, I would like to ask y'all to do something. If y'all would, please hit the thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and tell everyone about this. Now that we've seen that there's actually a way to have inscriptions written onto shells, tanks, and whatnot, I think it would be really cool if we had the Lee Spring Army put onto a vehicle or a shell. Honestly, I think it would be cool to do a vehicle so that way we can kind of have it emblazoned forever in memory as long as the war went on, and there would actually be a tank out there with the inscription Lee Spring Army on it. But of course, we're going to wait and see about that. We'll try and come up with something in the future about it, but make sure to hit that like button and also comment. And comment often and make sure that it's actual discussions, because one thing that would help us out a lot with doing this and also making it a little bit more public is if everyone helps to boost this channel. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but the best way to do it is to slam that like button and also tell your friends about this stream so that way they too will watch it, and then we can hopefully get a load of support for the Lee Spring Army, and maybe we can get Lee Spring Army put on more than just one tank. Maybe we can have like Lee Spring Army 1, Lee Spring Army 2, and so on. And so with that, we are now going to move towards the location unknown news, but before we do, of course, once again, we're going to answer 3 questions from the chat, and after we answer those 3 questions, we're then going to move on into the location unknowns.
Alright, and it is now time for the first question segment, but before we get to it, I actually need to take just a moment here to try to organize a spreadsheet. They've been rolling in like crazy. It looks like the sign a missile idea is really popular. So, now that it is all organized, up first we have a $50 super chat from Gary Robbins, who says, "Hey Enforcer, I respectfully suggest that you consider going into the armed forces after law school, not to make a career out of it, but to gain incredible experience."
Well, thank you so much for the support, Gary, and it has been something that I would like to do, but of course I have to put a little bit of a letdown on that idea. Not that I wouldn't want to, and I think it would be interesting, but the thing is that I have, like I was talking last night, double major scoliosis, and to kind of talk about this medical issue in a little bit more detail, scoliosis you can get into the military with. You have to get a waiver, but you can get in. The problem with my scoliosis, though, is that double major scoliosis is a little bit more on the severe side, and unfortunately, at my age, there's no way I could wear a brace to fix it. It would have to be surgery, and the surgery has a chance of being unsuccessful, and I could end up being paralyzed if it is unsuccessful. So, sadly, I can't really join the military even if I wanted to. They won't even allow me, because I checked on it, to enter with a waiver. Apparently my scoliosis is too severe for that, and so when I went up to a recruiter and asked him, here's my thing, they looked into it, and they said there's no way you could enter, even if you were to get a waiver. It's impossible with that kind of degree of scoliosis. So sadly, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I do give a lot of credit to everyone out there who does. It's an important service to the country, and while, of course, it's by and large agreed upon amongst most veterans that it wasn't the funnest thing in the world to do, it was definitely a service to the nation and something to be proud of, and a lot of them say if they were called upon to do it again, they certainly would, and I have to get behind them with that, because that is a very patriotic stance to take, and of course, it is supporting the nation. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, Gary. I know that that would be an interesting idea, and it would be invaluable experience to get, but sadly, just due to my own medical limitations, I can't do it. Also, to answer a question, someone actually said, what is scoliosis? Scoliosis, just to pull it up real quick, is a condition of the spine. It's where you have a bit of a genetic deformity, pretty much, that makes your back curve, like you see right here. A normal back, of course, as you can see right here, is perfectly straight, and the spinal discs
There's more coming. There's more coming. Shit.
Can you motherfuckers hear me or what's really going on?
What up?
Hello?
Hello?
What's
I've been trying to get down.
We're in here with, we're bottom of the food chain here.
To the heart of the matter.
Hey, their TDs are teamed up, and it's a good platoon.
It looks like I'm about to shut down this PlayStation. Because the thunder is a-rolling.
Yeah, good idea sometimes.
I'm here to shut him up real good.
Alright. We're bottom of the food chain, so let's go left here. Artie's taking pop shot, rogue shot. Yeah,
Oh, shit
Artie's
happens.
taking rogue shots over here.
It's not so
Artie's
bad.
taking rogue shots over here.
Our Deuce 9 is eating a ham sandwich. It's on break. What the fuck I was in that right now? Wonder if it'd be nice if you could climb out and climb in somebody else's shit when they don't use it.
Hey, let's redneck double back.
I'm with you.
Turn it around.
Alright.
Come on.
We're gonna get in front of these TDs and we're gonna just shove the whole thing. Doodly boo boo doo doo.
I just ran over the hay wagon.
Oh, our Artie's in the bush.
I'm chosen.
Smacked him.
I'm
John, I'm right
targeting
behind
those
you.
two right up there.
T-29.
Tiger P.
T-29 right here in front of us.
Fuck is that?
Fucking miss.
I got a shot on him too. I'm hitting
In
him.
the fucking middle again.
I'm knocking the shit out of him.
Somebody is. Whew. He's losing blood quick.
Damn it.
I done fucked up his luggage rack.
Hey, Living Pop, you might want to move that. You might want to move that Artie back about 40 yards.
You're right. Again.
Just to be safe.
Yeah, I see that TD over there.
Man, they're coming left. They're coming left and right, guys.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter. We're just screwed anyway. And I'm spotted.
We're beating them right now. Let's just keep up the good work.
I'm moving my ass.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. Do what you got to do. God, I just got rocked.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus. I'm gonna die. You still missed. Are you still... Oh my God. I thought maybe by now y'all would get him. Oh.
Oh, shit.
Alright, I'm shutting down.